You probably had this moment, often or not yourself, when you try to capture a pal and the number the game is showing to you is not quite adding up. And the reason for that is, well, the game is not telling you the whole truth, or seems to be, at least on an interface level, to be incapable of telling you the whole story. So let's have a look at that, what those numbers actually mean, what determines what captures a pal, and what you can or can't really do about it. Now, to make this absolutely clear, I didn't come up with this. This is by a Redditor called SunnyGame, which did some data mining, well, actually some deep data mining, to just find the mathematic formula for capturing pals, and the person did it. Now, if you want to check it out, there is a link in the video description, which also shows like the whole formula in its whole glory. And I know that also 99.5% of all the people will look at the formula and will go, yep, that's numbers. They're coming really nice together here. Like, it's actually quite intricate how much they are trying to determine if you capture a pal or not. And that really leads to the problem that the percentage number right in front of your screen is not necessarily right. But let's have a look how this works. There are 3 phases which will determine if you will capture a pal. And I know what you were already thinking. You mean 2 phases, right? You throw the sphere, then there's the wiggle, then there's the second wiggle, and capture, right? Not quite, because apparently throwing the sphere is already the first phase. This is where the game is determined if, well, it would bounce off, or if you actually start the capture process. And that bouncing is the most egregious percentage number. Like, this is the thing which most of the time will determine, do you capture this pal or will you not capture the pal? Because apparently the wiggle phase is giving you some huge bonuses to the capture phase. And this is why it sometimes feels a little bit weird when you are throwing a sphere, right? And then it shows a very low percentage number. You start the capturing process anyway, and then you capture it for the first time. Or you might have already seen it online. You remember those shorts or videos for Palworld where people are showing that they have a 0% capture rate on a pal, and then they are throwing the sphere like 100 times. It bounces off, of course, till it then starts the capture process, and bam, captured the pal first time. That's basically what's happening here. So first of all, yes, the game seems to have some issue with showing you decimal numbers, which, let's be honest here, they don't have to do that because they really want to discourage you to actually capture low percentage pals. But this explains the whole reason. The 0% is not necessarily coming from the wiggle process, it's coming from the bouncing process. And this is how most of the number you are seeing on your screen is actually coming together. So if you have a pretty high chance that your sphere will actually bounce off, this will lower your overall percentage quite a lot. Now, there is something like a capture power which is in place. So this is like the overall number where when you are capturing something, you need a certain power level to capture the pal, right? A sphere is adding power level. Certain status gameplay mechanics will add some power level. The health will add some power level, and so on and so forth, right? So if you were just throwing a sphere, like a standard sphere, at a pal with no preparation whatsoever, the chances that you will ever capture this pal, especially on a higher level, is non-existent, right? And if you are 50 power levels below the capture level, there is 0 chance. It is impossible to capture the pal. There's basically a gameplay mechanic in which just checks if you reach the 50 points, and if you do, the game is outright. Nope, it's not happening. Just not happening. But how do you determine the power level? So here's the thing, you don't. as a normal player, you don't do this on the fly. This is something the game is doing in the background. And as we already talked about, there are a few things which count into this: your sphere, your level, the level of the pal, then the status effect like sleep, shocked, in combat, when you were throwing a sphere in their bags and you were not in combat, or some other effects. But the biggest number you have to keep in mind is health. Health is just gigantic when it comes to the percentage bonus you get every time you are cutting off a little bit of health. Like in the mathematic formula, this is the biggest thing you have to basically keep in mind. Let me just give you an example here, and let me make this clear. I completely pulled those numbers out of my ass because there's, again, a lot of stuff which is going into this. But to give you an idea what I'm talking about, let's say you just removed 5% of health from the pal you want to capture, and you just gained a 20% capture rate. That's how big the difference is when you are chipping off some health from the enemy. So always try that if you have some issues with capturing a pal. And then there are also a few effects you have absolutely zero control about. Like, it seems like they're using some random modifier sometimes. Like, hey, today is a Tuesday and you are standing with one leg in water while it's also full moon and you are fighting a fire pal. Congratulations, you just got another 5% on your capture rate. You cannot really determine that. It changes all the time. And this is probably the reason why the game has issue with actually telling you this is your capture rate. There are so many things which are sometimes happening that even the game cannot fully display that. Now, the biggest question you probably have after all of this is just, okay, okay, it seems like they're not telling me the whole truth, but why does this matter to me? Can I utilize this knowledge somehow? Frankly speaking, no, really. Like, the only knowledge you need is higher pal spheres are better, having some effects on them is even better, and chipping off a lot of health is the best thing you can do. But the reality is, it doesn't really matter. Right? When you were capturing a pal, you had those moments where the game was telling you, hey, you have an 85% chance that you will capture this pal. You throw your sphere and it bounces off. It bounces off. It bounces off. It bounces off. Now it starts to wiggle and it's free again. And you are like, what just happened? I have an 85% chance here. What the heck? And then you have those moments where you are throwing a pal sphere. The game is telling you, yeah, 20%. Bam, first try. Right? We all had that happen to us in Palworld, and it's just the flow of the game, really. So don't think too much. I know a lot of people have been interested to understand how the capture rate really works, because we have seen quite a bit of videos in the last few days and weeks where people were showcasing the 0% captures. And yes, there is actually quite a bit of a mathematic formula in the background. But for you as a standard user, it's super complicated. You don't really do anything or can do really anything on the fly. And you just have to roll with the number and just trust the game, because it's close enough that you get an idea what you are getting yourself into when you are capturing a pal. But with that said, we are at the end of the video. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to leave a like. This helps me out a great deal. Damn the algorithm. And same goes, of course, if you are new to the channel, you love Palworld videos. We also have some live streams here, and we are focusing mostly on role play and survival games, which Palworld is definitely a part of. So yeah, make sure to subscribe if you want it. I would appreciate that. But with that said, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.